peace with his human boss. Stated in a Trinitarian fashion, like 2 Corinthians 13:14, the statement would be, may the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit give you grace in the eyes of the judge and peace with your boss at work. And this, Owen would argue, does indeed presuppose the invocation of a prayer to all three persons of the Godhead. So in other words, now in our secular type of thinking, when we say, oh, bless you, we sometimes aren't thinking about prayer to God at all. But really, since God is the only one that can give blessing, ultimately, anytime you say bless you to somebody, you are actually invoking God for the blessing. That's his argument, and it does seem to fit with the biblical examples. So in Revelation 1, 4, and 5, where it's said, go back there just for a second again, make sure you get what his argument is here. Revelation 1, 4, and 5, where it says, grace be unto you and peace. So grace be unto you and peace from him which is and was and which is to come, the Father, and from the seven spirits before his throne, the Holy Spirit, and from Jesus Christ, the Son, who is a faithful witness, etc. Grace be unto you in peace. What he's saying is that's saying that, that when you are wishing grace and peace on them, it's an authoritative benediction that involves an invocation of God, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, to bless them. So wishing grace and peace from all three persons of the Trinity is an indirect form of prayer to God for blessing from all three persons. Can you see what his argument is? Spent a long time on it, but I think this is a controversial subject, so it's good to talk about. I think there's a few more examples that show that his argument is strong. In comment number 2 on page 5 there's also some other texts like this. Like if you take a look at 2 Samuel 16:16. 2 Samuel. And we're going to take a break soon as we're done with this. But I thought we should finish it before we take a break here. 2 Samuel 16:16, it says at the end, God save the king. That's what the English, the King James says, God save the king. God save the Hebrew. If you have a King James with marginal notes, the Hebrew is let the king live. Similarly, like in Romans 11:1, where the King James says, God forbid. Has God cast away his people? God forbid. The Greek is, let it not be. God forbid is let it not be. Now, why does the King James put God in there? Well, because let the king live is a blessing on the king, which involves prayer to God for the king. Let it not be is really saying, God, don't let it be. And that's actually true. I have an article actually on this. People sometimes attack me and say this is not a good translation, but actually this is actually the idea God is involved in let the king live, let it not be. It is actually addressing God for making it happen. So that would also seem to be instances where this blessing involves invocation of God. What was the counter argument? Somebody against Owen's argument, we have a comment here. Hi Thomas, all this proves as I read it is that we look to the three persons of the Trinity for the blessing on our lives. Those texts do not read as instructing to address prayer to the Holy Spirit, such as sweet Holy Spirit. That's taking it too far. Jesus taught to address the prayers to the Father, and we must interpret the benediction texts. Passages that don't read like a prayer, neither are called prayer. Well, that's questionable. In light of the actual teaching on prayer, if you had not offered Owen's argument, it would not have occurred to me, because it would clash with what Jesus taught. So that's what he says. Then there's this other guy. This other guy at the comment is kind of a strange guy. He says Owen involves intellectual bloating. Whatever that means. And then he says some weird stuff, so he's kind of a weird guy. Okay, this was my reply to the Pastor Randall's comment there. Thank you for taking the time to read Owen's post and commenting. Certainly a benediction is not a direct prayer, at least not always. Sometimes it is. But that fact does not prove that benedictions are not indirect prayers. Owen would not argue that the model is prayer to the Spirit. It is to the Father through the Son by the Spirit. But that Matthew 6 is the model does not prove that all deviations from the model are unlawful in every situation. There are many prayers in the Psalter, which are certainly lawful for us to pray, that do not follow the pattern of Matthew 6. And many inspired prayers recorded in the New Testament that do not follow the pattern of Matthew 6. While prayer to the person of the Son is not the model of Matthew 6, it is clearly lawful, as Stephen prayed to Christ in Acts 7 without sinning, and all the saints are said to pray to Christ in 1 Corinthians 1:2. If Paul could properly derive doctrine from seed versus seeds in Galatians, then those were just the letter S, the plural over singular, then whatever legitimate implications are present in the benediction texts do actually have doctrinal significance. If there is a legitimate doctrinal implication about the lawfulness of invocation of the Spirit from benediction texts, the model of Matthew 6 is not changed, nor is it by any means contradicted. Owen would entirely agree with the idea that Matthew 6 is the model. It would simply prove that prayer to the Spirit is lawful, while prayer to the Father is still the model. Owen's case that benedictions are forms of indirect invocation looks quite strong to me. The example in the post of 1 Kings, for example, seems quite clear. Solomon blessed the people by invoking God and praying to him for a blessing. In addition to the text referenced by Owen, the category of passages I mentioned in a previous comment, like those like 2 Samuel 6 and 16, Romans 11:1, certainly seem to me to provide further support. I don't have a good case against Owen's argument, and I don't think it is sufficient to invoke the model of Matthew 6 unless we can prove that Matthew 6 is the only lawful way to pray at any time, which will be very difficult to prove. And then in response to George, I said it's easier simply to say that Owen is guilty of intellectual bloating, whatever that means, than to prove that it is so. And and then at the end, all three persons of God had not the Spirit alone or within the believer. Okay, so that's it. That. Do you guys understand what his argument is? Owen's argument. Benedictions are indirect prayers. Therefore, since the benedictions involve all three persons, there's a scriptural basis for invocation of the Father and Spirit. Do you have any comments on that argument? I think it's a pretty good argument, actually. I think it's actually convincing. So, Owen's argument was convincing to me that there is a legitimate basis for it. That it's not the model, but it is lawful to directly invoke the Spirit. Okay, well, let's take a break. That was very thick stuff, and we will come back and look at Owen, the actual book after that.
I do have a comment about the first one.
Sure. Hey, I don't know, how do you get this to stop? Which one do you press to get it to stop recording?
The red circle.
The blue, there's a blue circle. Oh, yeah.